Alright guys, back, more Kenna. Again, we're nearing the end. We got these two missions down here. Then I think at that point we're at the end game, so see how that goes. The meditation thing. Listening to podcasts still, so we'll just continue doing that. This will be it for today. We'll try to see how far. If we can get to a point where we can finish tonight, but we'll see.
I was like, yeah, I get it. But like
In an ideal world, I would like to finish this before New Year.
Panama his first time around, looking for a crack, and we know he was. He was trying to give people idols to open cracks. If here's a person that's just willing to flip immediately, it has to feel like Christmas. But as we learned, it is not a permanent way in.
Yeah, and that first vote at Takeo ultimately is going to come down to Abby Maria versus Jeff Varner, and this I think becomes a radically different season if Jeff Varner and PG don't end up switching their votes really at the last minute.
Oh yeah, because then at that point for that tribal, then the shelter people take control, and so who was the target among? I'm trying to remember if the target was among the beach people. Who would have been the new schooler who was gone? Was it Abby? No, it was Abby. Or was that right?
No, it was Abby.
In the first vote.
In first vote, yeah,
it was
I forgot.
Abby versus Vetus.
Abby versus Vetus. So yeah, I mean Abby would be gone, but that would have left. Vetus would stay, but it would leave Shireen and Spencer after having targeted Vetus in the minority, and that would have been a tough place for them. And then that first vote, I when it comes to Shireen, she was shot out of the cannon, as everyone pointed out, to the point where the first conversation we see her having is her and Spencer. By the way, it always seems like they're together.
Yeah.
They're always kind of going around making sure that they're cobbling the vote together.
Yeah.
She is just mile a minute. This is why we should get rid of Vetus.
She's a serious game player. And she's actually a big poker player now, and I think it really suits her because she does play very, very aggressively, and I think it's a bigger conversation to have, where that, especially a woman who comes out and plays that hard is seen whoa, all right, she's got to go. She's got to go. Whereas, Spencer, who maybe is not as vocally forward with what he wants to do, he gets all the way to the final three.
Yeah, no, and I totally agree with that stuff. And I guess what I'm getting at, I suspect that Shireen had her eye on getting rid of Vetus for some reason already, in the beginning, and she was able to maneuver a logical path that took her to this is why Vetus should go. And I think that she's good at spinning these sort of these sort of strategic narratives for things, which would have been very helpful if she made the merge for her. But it also put her at the top of people's radar when the beach people took power, the shelter people took power for someone to get rid of.
Yeah, you alluded to it earlier in terms of the reasons why Vetus had to go. There's definitely talk of that. A couple of the women say that Vetus is flirting. Vetus is smarmy. He's trying to teach his yoga poses, and the women there did not seem to love it. I don't want to imply that I don't think that in the actual footage, I haven't gone back and read interviews to just how uncomfortable people might have been with Vetus in that spot. I think that the game factors, though, I think are very serious in that he had just come off of Survivor Blood versus Water, where he played a very a very good game, especially the stuff that happens right before the merge in that season, where he's really shown manipulating the women's tribe to vote out Kat and Laura Boneham. He has a couple of good episodes there. He's also on this tribe with Terry Dietz, who has the natural connection with Aris from playing in Survivor Panama. Sierra is on the other tribe, and that's another connection that he has. So I think that Vetus was considered also a person with a lot of connections that maybe didn't necessarily align with what Shireen and Spencer had wanted to do.
For sure. And
I don't
certainly should not be making people feel uncomfortable on Survivor, absolutely, and that's not a good thing. I suspect there was also in this season. I mean, Shireen was raring to go to make a move, and I think that's the she clearly had set her sight. I mean, I think it was one of the first strategic conversations we saw was her, Spencer, and Varner. And so I think that there was a strategic angle to why that selection of Vetus. I mean, I think that's pretty clear. Like, it was the number of connections they had on the other side. And I think in terms of the other side of this, in terms of Jeff Varner, a lot of that first episode is like an arc for him.
Yeah.
That he doesn't want to be seen as a relic of the past, even though he's a season 2 player. He wants to jump on, he doesn't want to be left in the dust. So he jumps onto the Beach People bandwagon. Then probably jumps back the next episode, but we'll get there. So
yeah, and we all know what's going to happen with Jeff Varner when he comes back in Survivor Game Changers. But I really feel like that the production loved Jeff Varner in this season. I think he comes up very well in the episodes.
Okay, so it must be a certain order.
We're dying to get him back on a season to bring him back for Game Changers.
Oh, it is impressive if you have a 4-episode stint on a season and they want you back. Mm-hmm. That means you made an impact, and he clearly did. I mean, he came in just from a gameplay standpoint. He was willing to shake things up. He kind of flipped around like multiple times in different episodes. So gameplay was going to move things around to like, oh, we'll put him on Game Changers, right? And his confessionals were really high energy. He was willing to give his vulnerable side and also.
Oh, am I supposed to be hitting X?
Okay. Himself in a place where a crab would bite him
it tells you the order.
So that way he would come up with a great effect. I don't know what happened, but he had great spontaneous quotes. You can see why he was brought back. Just
oh my god,
year
what the
later.
fuck? Mm-hmm. What the fuck?
He does say like, I can't
why is it like dragging the camera down?
I'm lost, but he was almost like a new school player in the old school game.
Oh, for sure. I mean, like, he was, I remember when he came back for Game Changers, he was out on the island, but he had someone tweeting from his Twitter account at the time as if he was not on Survivor. I'm like, who are we trying to fool here? So clearly there was some kind of effort on his part. Like, you know that he was gaming. He was there to give the best, the most try as hard as he could to make an impression and get far.
Yeah. Another big thing from the early days of TKO, of course, that a big part of this season, I think one of the reasons why people love it is that they change up the way that the idols end up being found, which is something that they actually don't end up seeing very much more in the 30s. I think that at the time we felt like, okay, well, this is probably going to be the thing from now on, and from now on we're going to see the idols hidden in challenges. I think it happens maybe like 3 or 4 times throughout the rest of the next 10 seasons. Troyzan finds one that way in Game Changers. They do one with Elaine in season 39. And there might be one other one along the way. But yeah, this is really, I mean, that first episode where Kelly Wentworth finds the clue to the idol and then ultimately has to find the idol in the challenge. That is, epic Survivor.
It was beautiful television the first time around. Actually, one of the times it happened was in Survivor David versus Goliath. Dan Rendering found an idol hidden at one of our challenges when I was on his tribe. Mm-hmm. So it's something that adds a good amount of drama. I will say, no one in U.S. Survivor has failed at this, at these missions. I think it's something that on TV, oh my gosh, like, is Kelly going to get it? And for no doubt, for Kelly and for Jeremy, when they're doing, their heart is pounding because they don't want to get seen. In reality, no one is looking around the challenge and be like, okay, is anyone looking for an idol right now? Now, if they did that more often, that might become the strategy, but like, you got about 1 billion other things to worry about.
Yes. So what do you think? Like, does it need to be like the Adam Klein idol at Tribal Council? Like, does it need to be in a more like public place?
I think I like the idea of them being at the challenges. I think that's good. Yeah, something where, I mean, where at least there's a risk of being found, right? What if you have to be seen, like what happened with Steven? With Steven with the advantage, like later in the season, where you have to take the jump in front of everyone out for the challenge to get it. That is like
too much.
That's super. that's too much. I think you want people to have the chance to hide it. Is like Survivor loves it when when players surprise the other players with an advantage, right?
Mm-hmm.
But hiding it at the challenges, they're like, I think they should do that more often. If they did that like once or twice per season, then you would actually have someone getting caught.
Okay, Christian, I have a question about the idols and the clues to the idols in this season. And, you know, as somebody who is such a knowledgeable person, I was wondering if you might be able to give me your best theory, okay? So we see Kelly Wentworth find a clue to the idol here in episode number 1. It has a map and a description of the very first challenge of the season. I believe it's in the 4th episode of the season. Jeremy ends up finding a clue to the idol, which happens to be a map of the next challenge that he is going to run. Do you think, does production have a new map for every single challenge? Did Bion also have a map that if somebody would have found it, that would have had an idol in the same exact spot? Could Kelly have found 2 idols potentially in that challenge had she gone to Bion? And did they change out the clues to the idol before every single challenge?
1, 2.
I think they could do that. I think they could change the idols before each challenge. I mean, there are times where we're not at camp, and presumably a producer could go in and swap out the idol for a new one. So I wouldn't be. It'd be some work. I can see that there would be some overhead in terms of production to do that. I mean. I think they must switch it out. That's my guess. Because, and I just want to tell you why. If you disagree, I want to hear. But, like, they definitely, production wants people to find these things, right? Because imagine you came out, like, Jeremy went and found this thing, and it was like, it was yesterday's challenge. I missed it.
Yeah. Okay. How about this? And I don't know if this is too much behind the curtain. Do you think that they just have, like, a idol clue there, and then the producer has, like, the most updated one, and then, like, no, read this one on camera?
They might do that. I mean, is it much more work to have someone give? Here's the next title.
Because it's a very unreleased. You gotta like go in there and like upset the whole thing every single time.
I guess so. I just maybe I'm imagining like the size of the play area in Survivor. It's not so huge that you just you have a well-fed person can walk over and do it. I mean, we're gone for well over an hour or so. Yeah. So like the challenges, I don't think it's that hard. That's my So yeah, they could do that, but you know what? Maybe that'd be a good Kelly Wentworth question.
Well, I don't even know if she would know. I think maybe if anything, it was when Jeremy found his idol clue. Was it the most updated one? That would answer the question. And then I guess we still don't know the answer to like when you have an idol that you can find in that we've seen where in different seasons where like Ty switches tribes in Survivor Game Changers, like he goes to the well and puts an idol in the same exact spot. So did the Bion tribe have their idol hidden right under that thing? You know, could Kelly have signaled to somebody on the other tribe, hey, there's an idol right over there?
What I suspect is the mechanics, this might jive with what you're talking about, is that when you find that clue, it activates the idol under it for that particular challenge.
Got it.
That's the way that makes sense. I mean, because Dan found a clue, on my season, Dan Rankerang found a clue for one of our challenges it was just inside baseball, on my season, we were on the new Swaptiva tribe, and he found the clue right before the second immunity challenge. So clearly, so I don't think they were expecting but what if Dan found it immediately after we got there before our first immunity challenge? Was like, in 6 days there's going to be a challenge and it's going to be this one. I mean, it only makes sense that they swap it out for whatever challenge they're in.
Okay. All right, so Kelly Wentworth gets her hands on the first idol, and ultimately we have that tribal council where Vetus goes home. Hey, anything else from the first 3 days of Takeo?
Whatever.
So the first, Takeo, it's just you have the bracelet.
I guess have we talked through the bracelet enough?
I mean, just that is so. I mean, just make sure if people forgot.
Yeah.
It was terrifying. I imagine for PG because all of a sudden PG sort of hears rumors that Abby's talking about her bracelet.
Yeah.
And to the point where PG has to then approach Abby awkwardly to be like, so I did not take your bracelet, and it's just. It's almost like the kind of feud you would see on a first player season for the first vote that would get like someone knocked out immediately. Instead, greater imagination.
I'm trying to think. It's not even like anything that we've seen on Survivor before, where nobody has ever like accused another player of stealing their personal property. Like it's wild.
I mean, this is one of the reasons that Abby Maria is like the star. Like, I think arguably her and Varner are the stars of these first 4 episodes or so, just because you never know what you're going to get out of Abby. Because, like, she just produces these moments, and they keep happening. I remember, I actually listened to Steven's retrospective interview that you did. It was a 2-part interview after he came back from the show. I think one of the stories is that he told that he was one time talking with Abby about a plan, and he was just doodling in the sand. And he happened to write the letter A when he's talking to her. So like, that's an A for Abby. Are you planning on voting for me? And so like, and she like accused him of trying to vote for her out based upon some thoughtless doodle in the sand. So this is why she's a star.
Yeah. She's going to bring a lot of great drama to Survivor. Do you think that Abby Maria will play Survivor again?
I honestly was surprised that she wasn't on a season. I mean, maybe we almost get so much of Abby Maria that may have been like this season. I think to the point where like kind of midway through the game, they kind of intentionally fade her out. Even though I know she must have been involved in some of these things, like around the point of like the Kelly Wentworth idol plays, things like that, she's kind of pulled out. Maybe the producers are like, okay, let's pull back on her role in the edit of the show. So, but she is a beautiful character in that she got to see herself play once and saw these elements of her character that she says, I need to tone these down a bit. And then comes out and tries, but it comes out anyway. And that's rare among a lot of returning players. A lot of times they come back a little too self-aware. And she just delivers what is authentically her. So she would be a good choice for a third time.
Yeah, and she is who she is. I've had nothing but great interactions with Abby Maria. She's always like incredibly entertaining when she's been on the podcast. So I mean, that's why I always say that I would definitely work with Abby if I was on Survivor. But then cut to Abby Maria saying like, Rob, you're dead to me. Like, no, that wasn't me. I didn't. No, I don't know why you're saying that. Like, oh, then why did you look at me like that? No, this is how I look.
Yeah, I mean, and that's honestly the same impression. Like when I'm watching that season the first time, I'm like, I would want to work with Abby Maria. I bet like her and I would get along. I'm a little bit, I'm a little bit like Pete Yurkowski, right? And so but then the parade of people who it did not work out for happened. So
I
fallen into that trap.
Oh, I'm an idiot. Yeah. I forgot you can't do it after you jump.
So
what?
Abby Maria.
Oh, that's some bullshit.
Vetus is gonna go home.
Of course, now it's fucking gone, too.
Next vote that then Jeff Varner says that, and again, I think that Jeff Varner is kind of a master of trying to craft the narrative that most benefits him, as we'll see in the future. He's trying to say, like, no, I actually switched my vote because that was a wake-up call for the old school players. They need to start playing. Like, I turned on them to teach them a lesson. That's a little bit of a wake-up call. I'm going to now go back with the old school players, and I'm going to vote out Shireen and Spencer.
Jeff had an interesting pace for his game in that it was dialed to 12. Like, this is the sort of turns that I would recommend doing over the course of an entire season. Like, if you're going to flip on your allies once, or if you're Tony, I guess you can do it multiple times. But this is the first vote in the pre-merge, and he is already flipping back and forth. And he does this basically his entire tenure, four episode tenure in the game. And so but he is good at crafting these stories as to why. And I think that some of the better Survivor players are good at coming up with stories for why moves were made and for what reason.
Yeah, and so he says, okay, Terry, this is the wake-up call. That we got to go after Shireen and Spencer. And so they're going to go back and try to work on putting this back together. The PG and Abby feud has not been resolved. And there's a night where I guess PG and Shireen are talking, and Abby Maria must have been in the spy shack because she walks up and she says that she heard everything they said.
Well, and it happens a little earlier in the episode as well when Spencer and PG are talking. And the reason I remember this vividly is because Spencer is asking PG about the fire shelter that they had made in China. And this was actually an inside joke in my household. That moment back in Survivor China, that Danger Dave, Dave Cruiser,
Dave Ball,
Dave Cruiser was making this crazy fire shelter. He didn't even have a temporary baby fire. It was only going to be the master boss fire shelter. So Spencer was trying to get out the secrets of the legendary Dave Cruiser fire shelter.
Yes.
And PG's not still done it. He interrupts the scene. And so the one time I met PG, I asked her the secrets of the fire shelter.
Yes.
But Abby interrupts, just right into the conversation, and says like, well, "What are you talking about? Talking about me?"
Yeah.
And it happens to that.
And then they can't believe it, and it's not going great. And then we see like a scene like
There we go.
and Shireen and Spencer and Kelly and PG are like all in the shelter, and they're like having a good time, and Abby Maria is like left to her own devices, and Terry Dietz is gonna come and pick up the pieces.
He's gonna swoop right in and talk to her. According to PG, it's important to Abby for 2 hours now. We don't have watches on Survivor, so I'm not sure. Maybe she's good at telling time by the moon or something. But he talks to her and gets her head turned around, and then Terry does some kind of butter churning motion about his now acquired social game.
Terry's got a social game.
Yeah, it's just like, all right, Terry, good for you. You got it. And so, but it doesn't take much to get Abby's head turned around. That's one thing I noticed. Like if she feels burned for anything, people come up to her, they talk to her, and they say, "Man, I'm so good. I turned Abby Maria," and then wait 3 days or less.
Yeah. So now the old school crew now with Abby, with Jeff back on board, they do have the advantage, and that I thought it was very interesting. Some of the players that are in the middle, specifically PG and Kelly Wentworth, that I like this from them, that they see where the numbers are going, and they're gonna go on the right side of the numbers. That I like this generally from players who are sort of like, okay, I'm not committing to either side. Let me figure out where it's going. Okay, I was with you guys the whole time.
I was actually very surprised when I watched this episode. I was like, wait, how does this become only PG and Spencer Shireen and Spencer are on the apps?
Yeah.
And it is because they were properly fluid. They're like, I'm not committed here. And I think that was very smart of them. And I think that one thing we'll find about PG, but also Kelly in particular, is she's very good at sensing where the numbers are. She's got her finger in the wind, knowing which way to go, and I think that serves her very well.
And I think with PG, I think that there's a case to be made that she ultimately decided the first vote, but I'm not sure about that. I think that she ultimately goes onto the winning side and ultimately ends up putting them over the top. I'm not sure if she made that call and Jeff Varner followed suit, or if she was sensing that Jeff Varner was going that way, and she ultimately is gonna I think that they had talked to each other. If you go this way, I'll go this way too.
Yeah, Peachy's good. Peachy's good. I think when we get to her boot episode, like which is like the next episode, I think that she makes, I think, what is kind of a fatal mistake that is mostly precipitated by Abby Maria and other things going on. That it's crazy. I don't blame her. But yeah, no, I think it's PG and Kelly Wentworth were very good at flipping these around.
And Kelly Wentworth is the one that gives the heads up that she's not going to vote with Shireen and Spencer, and and Shireen is like gobsmacked. I'm like, oh, and like over the Abby thing.
Yeah, and then even more terrifying is that the conversation between Shireen and Abby, that they go off together to have a conversation alone, and the music drops out for just a minute, and you're like, oh, this is very tense. You just feel it as Shireen slowly realizes that Abby is turned on her. It's just like, wait, Abby, are you with me still?
Yeah.
And she said, it's not my style. Oh, so like I feel so bad for Shireen, and then she immediately goes back to Spencer. She's like, "We are screwed."
Yeah.
And my favorite part is Spencer's like, "Could you be more specific, please?" It's like, how are we screwed?
And it's interesting that we talk about Spencer as being sort of like the person who is going to be just like going with the numbers, not a ton of loyalty to any particular people in the game. This is the one time where that he's gonna go down with the ship.
Yeah, I mean, I think at that point, I think it's early in the game. Mm-hmm. Imagine you're there, you're early in an all-star season. I'm sure that's hard to imagine. You don't necessarily know which way this game is going. I mean, Spencer got all the way close to the end before, but you never know if you're back the second time that you'll just be put in a corner and you're toast. Maybe from his perspective,
so my reality TV is pretty much dead.
I actually apologize. That Spencer votes for Shireen votes for Spencer. So
but the way he talks about it, though, I think you're right in terms of the narrative. I'm totally with you. He said, I don't want to vote for this person. I like Shireen. I think it's helped that they work together well. They talk at each other's speed. It kind of like reminded me of that me and Gabby kind of thing. Where I can
who's shooting?
She can right back. Yeah. And so he's really broken up. I got to vote for her, vote for me. What he didn't try to do is go and like peel off numbers from
the other side. An idiot. What the fuck?
It's the only time he appears morally conflicted about a vote.
Yeah. I mean, you flash forward later, when Cass saves Spencer in the one vote for the merge, they immediately goes and votes her out in the next one, right? We don't see that happen in future votes. So yeah, I agree with your overall sense that this one felt hard for Spencer, and maybe it could be a thing where if you have to vote on someone you really like at the beginning, it makes all the other votes easier.
Mm-hmm. Maybe. Christian, let's talk about Bion pre-swap and what's going on over there. A little less to walk through over there. It's a little bit more of a straight shot. What's your impressions of pre-swap Bion?
Well, it's this love tribe, right? That's what we're told, and that's the way it's portrayed. I mean, they never have to go to tribal council. It's very easy to be the love tribe in that setting. The thing that I took away is that they're setting up this feud between Joe and Spencer, Joe and Steven, Steven and Savage. And man, I was watching, I think about my notes, I'm like, poor Steven. Like that early, they'll have this game for Steven. Like when I'm watching this first time, by the way, I'm rooting heavily for Steven, also Spencer. And anytime Steven's gonna make it through a tribal council, or an episode, I'm like, yes, they won and Steven's still in it. I'm like, great. I'm happy for him. So I missed at the time the degree to which he was just being felt like in so many ways. And with the stick sequence, him searching for the idol. One thing I noticed is that when he went out and to go get firewood and was looking for an idol, they were back at camp, and Kimmy says, I think he was, air quotes, looking for an idol. So this makes me think that, did Steven tell everyone he was going to look for an idol, but he in fact was not? Is that what Kimmy was saying?
Because she's the air quotes? You think
she's the air quotes.
That is looking for an idol code for Aqua Dump?
Yeah,
I'm gonna go look for an idol. Maybe, is that what Tony was gonna go do in Game Changers? Is
He actually originally had the gastrointestinal distress back in Cagayan. That's what happened.
Yeah.
No, and
Oh,
so,
that's the
so
health one,
poor Steven
yeah.
was my thing.
Yes.
Is what I had for that.
So I know Steven really does not care for his edit in this season. Did you think it's that bad?
I can see why he would think it's that bad. If I were in his position watching this episode, it would hurt me a lot. I mean, well, here's the thing I referenced at the top of the show. This is what Andrew Savage, and it's implied that it's said about Steven. Like, when he's not getting along with Steven, he's like, something like Steven, he's all, I'm paraphrasing him, but like, it's like, he's all about this game, and, I just can't trust him.
He thinks he's the world's greatest survivor strategist.
And then he says, I value things like morals, values, loyalty, dignity, and courage.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh. And now I think, now to be clear, I think that what probably happened is production asked Savage, what things do you value? Oh, these are the things I value, and they kind of cut it together, but more directly. But like, imagine you're Steven watching that, like, and with your coworkers, like, oh, that would hurt.
Yeah. Overall, I know we're talking about Steven. I didn't think Andrew Savage comes off like that bad a guy. I feel like that Andrew Savage, he says some things that are so I wouldn't say that. But overall, I mean, Andrew Savage, he doesn't trust Steven. Probably a little too high on Joe, but he just thinks the world of Jeremy. That he makes a mistake in telling Sierra that he wants to put the votes on her. But other than maybe he's a little bossy. I don't think that he we were, I think, very protective over Steven during that season. I think that Andrew Savage kind of gets a raw deal from his reception.
Oh, and to be clear, I don't think that he thinks these things about Steven either. In my opinion,
and I bet if you asked him now, I bet he'd have nicer things to say about Steven and maybe not so great things to say about Joe.
and I think that, and here's what I thought about Andrew Savage when I was watching this, and I agree. I think that when he had his low moments, and they all got stitched together into this thing where, he was the person that was used to talk the downside of Steven. But yeah, I imagine that people got along fine with people. I think he's just hyper sincere. They say his heart on his sleeve. I see him actually as a bit of a more strategically put together version of Shane Powers. And that, Shane Powers will just tell you exactly what he thinks about everything. I mean, you know him better than me. And part of me, I was watching this, I'm like, I would have killed to have Shane and Andrew Savage on the same time. Just I would have paid to watch it, because these people who have who will tell you when they feel like they're wrong or when they don't, just going at each other. I imagine they would not mesh. So, but me, I think they would
mesh very well.
Think they would mesh well? I
feel like that Savage and Terry, I feel like, are similar enough, and I feel like that, once, Terry was, you gave family visit to Shane, I think that Shane thinks the world of Terry. I just think that they have to be on the wrong sides of the tribe. So I feel like that if Shane is just all about, complete 100% honesty and transparency. If he tells you something, if he thinks of something, he's going to say it. If you are not being honest and transparent with him, you find it very frustrating. I think that Andrew did that.
Yeah, I guess what I was going for is I was wondering if Savage would say something that open honestly is something that's going to be bad for Shane, then that would lead to some kind of fireworks. I see what you're saying. Shane values authenticity. That's what it seems like he values. What I hear that, and Savage definitely gives you that. When he says something, it feels like it's coming from his soul. I was thinking, man, I would love to sit down and have a glass of wine with Andrew Savage and just get his opinions on things and just bounce ideas off him and get. And so, I agree with you. I don't think he wasn't horrible. I think the thing that was just the Steven, I was like, wow, the fact that quote that he used to Steven, that if I were Steven, I'd be hurt.
Oh my God.
He came in, I'm sure, with some perception of Steven, oh, this guy is just thinks he's the survivor authority, thinks he knows knows everything. A real sneaky guy. And then Andrew Savage was on a season. He got burned with Johnny Fairplay.
Did he?
I hate these weasels. That's Steven must be like. I don't think that he's like did a ton of research into. I think that he read the Survivor wiki, and that's what it said about Steven. Like, I'm not going to work with this guy.
I was seeing partly the game telephone, right? That it became Survivor know-it-all. It became Steven believes he's the greatest strategist in the history of this game. It's like that's so yeah, I agree. It's probably a little low information. Yeah, I mean, I think that, and also Savage is wonderful right around. Like he, in terms of a character, I mean, he's actually a person that I remember thinking he got screwed on his first season, and I was like, oh, I was happy to see it back. But on this go around, I was like, you get a lot of emotion and range from his character, especially when he's on Angkor or whatever, or whatever the new Bion or whatever he was on, and he's later on. So yeah, I'm really glad he was on. Yeah, he's I was really glad he was on the show.
Yeah, and he becomes a great foil for the Kelly Wentworth idol play. I mean, I think that there's like a better person than it could have been in terms of giving you that moment. So that was great. He's gonna wear a beanie on the jury. So Andrew Savage definitely is going to bring a lot. So he's sort of like, but in my head, I think in the first time through, I thought that he was really the leader. But I think I think this is how Jeremy wanted it. I mean, it's more of a figurehead leader, where Jeremy is really, I think, the heart of Bion.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely how I would feel about it. Like he exudes a sort of leadership, as he doesn't want to be a wimpy little non-leader. So he is taking sort of the visual bullets. Get out in front. But yeah, Jeremy is the one that connects all these people. And like what you talked about at the beginning, and that's a good place to be, even though it puts you in a little bit more political peril when your satellites, your shields all don't get along together.
Yeah.
And one thing I know that we're is there anything else on Bion here? There's Cass is there. She's trying to be nice.
I guess we should talk about the emergence of Joe 2.0. I do think that Joe 2.0 is the best version of Joe that we get on Survivor. That I think that Joe 1.0 really ends up having a very messy pre-merge game, especially a pre-swap game in Survivor Worlds Apart. I mean, that he really comes into his own as sort of like the Joey Amazing after the merge, where he goes on that run in Worlds Apart. But he really comes into this game, gets the fire started. Everybody is talking about how impressive he is. They're doing Joka.
Guess what ends here?
Tasha is talking about all she can do is look at Joe's body. And do we get it from early on that Steven is wary of Joe?
Probably tonight.
I say we get it. I mean, I forget exactly what